Good afternoon. My name is Dorian Yarnelson. I am broadcasting from Angel Island State Park in the center of San Francisco Bay. And I'm going to take a step outside real quick so I can show you where we are. We're at the north side of the island, the immigration station. And we are looking out towards the Richmond Bridge, Richmond San Rafael Bridge. I'm only going to stand outside for a moment because it's very windy out here, and I don't want the wind to potentially interfere with you understanding my broadcast, and sometimes it can drown out the noise and drown out my voice. But I want to just orient you a little bit to where we are right now. And I'm going to show you some images so we can put this place on the map for you in case you're not familiar with the area, which is understandable. One moment. So this is a map of the southwestern United States. It's part of it. As you can see here, San Francisco, or just above San Francisco, there's a red dot there. That's where we are right now. Pulling a little bit here, you see that red dot is exactly where Angel Island is. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further so you get more of an idea of where we are. Angel Island State Park is right next to Alcatraz, but it's a much larger island. 33 times the size of Alcatraz. See Alcatraz right there. We're here where the red dot is, State Park, Angel Island. And this red dot is the part of the island where we are right now, the immigration station, which is a fascinating and historic facility. It's kind of a crossroads in world history. The architecture is one of the things that makes it so interesting. I'll zoom in because that red dot is right over the building where we are right now, which is the immigration station's detention barracks. The historic detention barracks where immigrants were housed while they were being processed for entry into the United States. And I'm currently standing in one of the detention barracks dormitories. You can see the kind of conditions that the immigrants lived while they were being housed here, while they were going through the process here at Angel Island. It was a very strict immigration process. They called this, or at least the immigration authorities that worked here called this the Guardian of the Western Gate, because they were enforcing various laws which restricted Chinese and then later, more general sense, Asian immigration into the United States. I'm going to show you some more images so we can discuss the architectural history of the island. Not just the immigration station necessarily, but various other features. This island was used for a lot of purposes by the federal government. The island was used as a military base starting in the Civil War. I'm going to show you some of the military architecture here. So you have Camp Reynolds in the western side of the island. And then, of course, we have Fort McDowell in the eastern side of the island. We're going to be discussing some of the architecture that was put up by the Army in both of those sections. There's also a quarantine station, which was also tied into the history of the immigration station. The U.S. Marine Hospital Service, they ran a quarantine station and a hospital here at the immigration station. They were screening for certain diseases they wanted to prevent from entering into the U.S. We're going to show you some. This is an interesting building that's right here in the immigration station, but it was built after the immigration station closed down. It's the old mess hall, dining facility that was put up by the Army because they had to replace the cafeteria, which burnt down. The administration building was destroyed by an electrical fire in 1940. This is a rendering of the detention barracks where we're standing right now. The rendering was done by me, and I've been doing a lot of illustrations of the architecture around the building. We'll be discussing some of that. This is an illustration I did of the quarantine station as it appeared. back in the 1890s. It was established in 1891. Then it was taken down in 1946. So it had a little bit longer of longevity than the immigration station itself, which lasted from 1910 to 1940. These are cottages that were built by the great Julia Morgan, the first female architect in California, but they were destroyed in a controlled burn, a controlled demolition burn by the California Forestry Department and state parks. And the destruction of these cottages was actually used, the footage of which was used in the film 1972 political comedy, The Candidate, with Robert Redford. We'll discuss that a little bit later. And this is her sister island, Alcatraz, which is host to the oldest lighthouse in California. Angel Island is unique in the sense that it has three lighthouses, or it had 3 lighthouses on the island. This is a structure that's from the western side of the island, Camp Reynolds, which is an old Civil War fort. And this is one of the older buildings on the island going back to 1863. You can see there's a very long architectural history here. This is another old building on the island. The bakehouse, or the bakery, also goes back to 1863. This is where Union soldiers during the Civil War used to bake bread, which would supply and feed the soldiers that were stationed here on the island. That's another rendering of the bakery from different vantage points. And this is some military architecture that was actually put up here at the immigration station. This is a drawing I did of the guard tower that's outside. We'll be looking at some other images of that. I took some photographs of that earlier today that we can discuss, because that's actually a pretty interesting structure. This is a portrait I did of Julia Morgan, who I mentioned earlier. She's one of the architects who worked on the immigration station here. Most of the buildings at the immigration station were actually put up by, or were designed by Walter J. Matthews, who'd been the city architect for the city of Oakland. And this is an image of what the immigration station looked like between 1910 and 1940, before the administration building burnt down. So the building here in the front is the administration building. It was designed by the architect Walter J. Matthews. There was a long dock that immigrants would have to walk down in order to be admitted to the immigration station, so they could begin their process, see if they could get into the country or not. And this is a photograph of the administration building in 1940 when it's burnt down as a result of an electrical fire. The immigration station itself was put up as the result of the great earthquake of 1906 in San Francisco, which destroyed a lot of the important government buildings, such as the Hall of Records, and a lot of the government facilities in which they conducted immigration affairs and operations. So they needed a new facility as a result of the destruction, the fires that were in the aftermath of the earthquake in 1906. So ironically enough, it would be fires that would close down the immigration station, and the U.S. Department of Commerce would leave. These are some immigrants that are coming off the boats onto the dock and to Angel Island Immigration Station. This dock is no longer standing. And this is an image of some of the military architecture at Fort McDowell, which is just above here, which is the main army post that was here at Angel Island during between the Spanish-American War and the Second World War. Post exchange. So some very impressive military architecture all around the island that we're going to be talking about. And this is another vantage point of Fort McDowell. You can see some of the housing that the soldiers would have lived in, some of the facilities that they would have been hanging out in while they were here. And this is a photograph of the staircase, the caged staircase that would have connected the detention barracks to the administration building. So immigrant men were housed inside of the detention barracks. They would take all of their meals in the cafeteria, which was in the administration building. When that building burnt down, that closed down immigration operations, and the Army had to build a new dining facility for their purposes. Once they took over, this facility became a prisoner of war processing facility. Here's an aerial view of the Fort McDowell military installation. You can see a bunch of different features. Here's Quarry Beach. You can see old military hospital and housing, military dormitories. So we'll be discussing that a little bit later. And here's an old photograph of the quarantine station. I know we're jumping all over the island, but there's a lot of different aspects of the island that we'll have to discuss. So I think it's necessary to do it this way. And here's a view of the old Civil War garrison on the island, Camp Reynolds. Call it West Garrison. They called it Fort McDowell during the post-Civil War years, but for our purposes, we'll just call it Camp Reynolds. Old picture, and here's an image of the immigration station as it appeared before the administration building burnt down. So down below, you'll see the administration building. Here you see the detention barracks. And over here, you'll see the hospital. This is run by the same service that operated the quarantine station. And up above, you'll see the cottages, some of the cottages that were built by the great Julia Morgan, who also designed a lot of very intriguing architecture in the San Francisco Bay Area. She designed works such as the women's YMCA, women's what was it? YWCA, I should say, in Berkeley, the Women's Club. She designed the Chinese Historical Museum in Chinatown, San Francisco. And of course, she also designed the Great Hearst Castle, which is an art museum administered by the State Park Service. It had been the pleasure palace of the great William Randolph Hearst, a media mogul who basically was spending his entire fortune on a huge art collection and sponsored a bunch of artists and architects to build his fantasy palace up in the hills of San Simeon. Here you see another vantage point of West Garrison Camp Reynolds. And these are some old wood Civil War era structures. You have quarters 10, which I showed you. I will show you an illustration of that I did. Oh, wait, no, I did show you an illustration of that. And officers row. And here's a military hospital that's also part of Camp Reynolds. Very interesting building. And there's another view of the detention barracks as you're approaching from the gate. And here's a view of the detention barracks as you're coming down the hill from the main gate, Perimeter Road. And yeah, it certainly is an intriguing building. Here's a photograph of the hospital. It's designed by Walter J. Matthews. Very interesting building. And here's a picture of the Army watchtower or guard tower that was used to make sure that prisoners of war wouldn't escape from the prisoner of war processing facility, which is what the detention barracks became. So this is just above the immigration station detention barracks. And here's a water heating plant, which is right down there by the beach. Call it China Cove. And this is part of the immigration station. So that was also designed by Walter J. Matthews. Another image of the guard tower. And here is an image from behind of the mess hall or the dining facility that was put up by the Army when they took over the building as a result of the administration building burning down. Took over USIS Angel Island and incorporated into Fort McDowell. So this was put up in 1942 and it was used to feed the prisoners of war and Japanese American internees and enemy aliens that were housed at Angel Island during the war. And this is a very interesting photograph, historical photograph of one of the lighthouses here on Angel Island, Point Knox. So we're going to be discussing some of these facilities. We're going to be discussing the architecture on the island. I'm glad I was able to just give you a general overview, but that's an introduction to what we're going to be talking about in the upcoming presentation. Thank you for your time, and I'll be talking to you soon.